I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
What's up, Vagrant Queen fans? Welcome to the Vagrant Queen After Show. We're talking episode 5, Temple of Doom, and we got Queen herself in the house, Adriyan Rae. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're super excited to talk about mid-season. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. We've come this far. And my name is Kari Lane, joined by my awesome co-host, James. How do you feel? We're halfway through.
Hello, everyone out there. I don't know, it's like bittersweet. Like we've come so long. We made such great connections with these characters. I'm excited to see what's happening next. And I'm even more excited to be talking to the Vagrant Queen herself, Miss Adriyan Rae, today.
Thank you so much.
And we do have a live chat, so welcome everybody who's watching live. Please chime in the chat. We'll pass on your questions to Adriyan. And if you're watching it later, no problem. Please comment down below what you thought of this episode. So yeah, right. We're kind of in the middle of this. We are the middle of the season, and we have a whole bunch of deaths. And it's actually there's some brutal deaths, which we'll get into. A whole lot of betrayal. And also, stay tuned towards the end. We have our very special segment where we look behind the prosthetics. And James, what's that segment called?
It's called Winnie Who? Winnie what?
So make sure to stay tuned for that. All right, so let's dive right in, which we essentially literally do at the beginning of dive into that sand planet, Planet Wix. It was looking a bit bleak at the beginning there, and it was a fun Tremors vibe. I dug it.
Yeah.
More ways than one, pun intended. James, what did you think of the planet when we first start off?
You know, I'm so glad you said Tremors, because I feel like that's such an obscure movie that not a lot of people know about. That was the immediate thing I thought of when I saw like the little sandworm come out of nowhere. And then even the way I feel like Issac killed it, it was very Tremors, like the explosion and like all the guts go everywhere. This is a really, really small thing, but I'm happy we kind of finally got a name of that little rabbit-looking creature. It's called a dunkrum, because we've seen it quite often in the past few episodes. So that was a small little like, oh, now it has a name. Yeah.
And I like that that's all it does. It's just a cute little bunny thing.
I love the part where he's like, well, maybe you just gotta crop up a green turd. He's like yelling at the dunkrum.
I think at this point we've seen so many crazy creatures. It's no telling what even the most like cute looking thing will do. So I think that was a fair point that Issac raised.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think anybody taking anything for granted on the planets, which we have learned from previous episodes. Oh yeah, sure. Let's trust the natives on the planet, or visitors too. All kinds of different people on the planet to be like, don't trust anybody, which is the Queen's motto too. Don't trust anybody.
Yes.
What did we think, James? How did you feel getting this 5-year ago flashback for Issac?
You know, I hadn't realized this until this episode. We hadn't really been given too much backstory about Issac. I guess because, you know, we're planet hopping and trying to figure out what's going on with Zeppelin. Like, it kind of has fallen by the wayside. So I definitely thought that this was a surprising revelation, but one that kind of we should have expected. I don't think any of us were really like, oh, that's right, we haven't heard anything about Issac. So it was cool to get some insight into him. It was finally cool to see the caption, Jupiter, you know where this planet is. I was like, oh, we made it home finally. We're in our solar system. Perfect. So I thought that was cool. It was also interesting to finally see his wife, who was pregnant at the time that they did the phone call. We saw the whole wormhole incident to figure out exactly how Issac got to where he was. So I definitely thought this was a good turning of the page for the show, because with Issac being one of the lead characters, it's really informative to know about his future decisions if we know about his past.
But I also feel like learning his backstory, it humanized him more. It made us be like, oh, yeah, like, to actually, like, if someone says, I have a kid, it's different than when you meet their kid and you see them interact with their kid, and you can genuinely tell how much they care about their kid. So I feel like it made him more humanized and us relate to him more, because you've seen how he interacts with his wife and how they joke and how they love each other and how he can't wait to get back to her.
Oh yeah, their humor was so cute and funny. She's
Mhm.
like, "Hold on, I gotta show you something." It was like, uh, taking some. And you're like, "Oh,
I
okay."
know. I was
And
like,
here's like food.
I was like, what is the rating of this show again? What is about to happen? She's like,
It's like, "Hey now." Yes. Oh, okay. We got a good question, which we'll hold towards the end here when we get towards these. And
Cool.
I did like the backstory for Isaac because yeah, we didn't really have much context for him because we like yeah, as you were saying, Adrian, it was kind of this abstract idea, like okay, he has a wife and he has a kid on Earth, but now we really get a grasp of how far that is because totally makes sense. So he goes essentially through a black hole wormhole thing to get to this other place and that's why he can't easily get back because at first you're just like
Mhm.
okay, do they have ships that do interstellar travel that well? And not exactly, but you need a lot of money.
Some people have
Mm,
those. The
yes,
Mhm.
this
majority
is
does.
true. Which calls to later, which we'll get to, of something I totally was like, I knew it, which is that too. Uh, we, what else on the, there we are. So back when the, oh, we also get the update on that with on Areopa that the council finds out about what Lazaro is doing, and they're going to revoke his title. Which push pause on that because we don't come back till that till later. But uh, James, what are you thinking when we see them? The council's like, nope, he's done.
Well, I have a soft spot for the actress Robin Scott. She plays Admiral Raquel. Like, I think she is so funny, and I was so happy to see her initially, and then to see her pop up. I think it's now 3 times that we've seen her in the series thus far. Love that actress. Super, super funny. I love that she's like the HBIC, and she's like, "Look, you've had your chances, Lazaro. I'm taking your title. I'm considering you a renegade. I'm coming to get that ship." I love her interaction. I think this episode too. I don't know the admiral that she's paired with, but she said this episode she's like, he was your hire. I was like, yeah, get him. So I love the comedic timing of this actress. I love that character so much.
Me too.
It's interesting because it almost humanizes. Well, they're not human, but makes you like that side of the Republic a little bit more because Lazaro's not a good example of what this alternative is to ruling the galaxy. But them, they seem a bit more level-headed, and they kind of seem to want the equality that I hope we get a little bit more on that kind of infrastructure that's in place because we just
Mhm.
have seen glimpses, so not enough to fully assess that they're trustworthy.
Yeah.
Right.
But still able to let you see the difference between them and Lazaro and their idea.
Yes, exactly. Then we get when they're getting ready to go into the tomb and everything, and I do love that we get our slow mo again that we get every episode, the slow mo in the sand. We also saw on Twitter quite a few posts. This sand seemed to be a bit intense. Adrian, how was it filming at that location?
Um, Filming was great. It was fun. It was really crazy because the sand is very fine at the sand dunes, and then in the tomb it was very very fine. And we would go in. They dustied us up. They made us have like sunburn and things like that with hair and makeup. But then we would be in the tomb working. We would come out. We'd have like rings of sand in our nostrils, sand in our eyelashes, in our eyebrows. So it was very practical, but it was really fun to do at the same time. The weather is very different at the dunes. It changes dramatically over the course of a day. So that was
Wow.
interesting and fun to do as well.
I was going to ask if it was hot or cold because it could appear hot, but it actually was cold while filming, and everybody's all bundled up head to toe. Or did the temperature change throughout the day?
It was madness. Like in the morning, people were handing out ice packs to each other, and we're in the jackets. We're just sweating. We're
Mm.
hot, and we gotta walk up the dunes and come back and do it again. So that part was fine. Then all of a sudden, it got super super windy, really windy, and like to the point where like tents are blowing away. And then
Wow.
after that, really cold. So all in one day of shooting, we got like winter, summer, fall. It was like everything.
Whew. Did you get any like gotta brush out your teeth later
Oh
or
yeah, it was everywhere. You'd find it on your
Mm.
armpits. Like how did that happen? Everywhere.
It's like going to the beach. You're like, yeah, you're just gonna get sand everywhere.
Yeah.
Nice.
Exactly.
How difficult was it to film how difficult in general is it to film the different slow-mo sequences? So this one you're all in the sand, you're fighting the sandworms.
This one wasn't too difficult. There's one that was difficult for me. I believe it is episode 8. That one was hard because of the pose I chose. But this one wasn't too difficult. It was just literally Jim was like, "It's time for the mannequin challenge," and we all was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I was like, "I'm gonna use the knives." So we got those out, and Issac has his hero moment. He's like midair. I'm sure that was a little hard for him because he had to be like suspended and with the boxes and the C-stands that are wrapped in green for green screen later. But that one wasn't too hard for me personally. But I know for Issac it might have been a little more difficult because his pose. But it came out so epic.
I think that my favorite one, the real underdog of this episode, the pose, was Ame for sure. She had like a scared, like kind of pose. I thought it would be funny to hold that for a long period of time.
Krog's pose is really great.
Yeah.
It is really good. We didn't get to get that, but if you see it, like when I remember looking back after they get done, because after they do it, right? So I'm super like into it, tense. And I know the camera's passing me, and I'm like, okay. I just look at it. And I was looking at Krog, and I was like, man, he is killing this pose. And it was like just so epic with his prosthetics. It's really cool too.
Nice. Now, Adrian, I'm glad you mentioned the difficulty of Isaac's pose. Tim was mentioning how before one of the early first poses, how you were like, yes, I want 2 guns and hold them out, and realizing how difficult it is to hold objects out with your arms extended.
Well, they give you C-stands if you start shaking.
Oh, nice.
You do that, then they're like, okay, you need to stand. That one wasn't too bad because it wasn't both out. One was here and one was here. So that was because I also needed a maze head to not be blocked by my arm. But yeah, you don't want to be holding too much in the midst of that. Or, being in the sand. Luckily we shot that mannequin challenge when it wasn't windy. But I can't imagine trying to do a mannequin challenge when it was windy with the sand and just try not to blink.
Oh.
Yeah.
As soon as the camera gets to you, you be like, don't blink. And then like, it's on you. Sorry. Again.
Oh no.
Yeah.
How many times did you have to do this particular one in the sand?
I think we did it. We only did it once or twice.
Oh, cool. Nice. And then do you feel like, all right, we did it, just showed off, like moving on?
Yeah, we had to move on. We these doom days were intense, and we had to like fight against light. So it was like, got it, good. Let's move on.
Moving on, but not as quickly as we all want. We've had some moments of Elida and Ame getting close to each other. How are those scenes in this episode? We did talk about last week. You had a moment with Ame of you both wanted to redo the scene and get another take in, and apparently that last one was the take.
Yes, it was. This scene in episode 5, when we're in the cockpit and things like that, it was more so comedic at first because when I first read it, I was like, I'm waking her up loudly, but she's like, okay. So that's how we originally first did it. But I remember Alex, we were trying to choose how we were gonna be in the ship. And I remember she was like, I want to be like this. It was like this like crazy way. We were like, okay, let's make that work. So that's why her head's all back and I'm like crouching, like, hello, can you hear me? But our moments are really genuine. I love acting with Alex. She's great. And our chemistry is very natural and organic. So once we just lock in and look into each other's eyes, normally, we feel it, and then therefore you guys feel it. But I like how it's becoming more normal for Elida to have these moments with her. They're not as weird anymore and awkward.
Yeah, because she seems to be, I mean, rightfully so, such a very guarded person. And she's finally relaxing a little bit and enjoying these moments, which is nice for us to see, because it's like, oh, they're just so precious. And you're like, okay, it's okay.
Yeah, and Amay's like it's okay if you wanna. Do you wanna hold my hand? Yeah, we can hold
Yeah.
hands here. Like, it's all fine. And I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah. Now, so far, it does seem like Ame is the only one. Well, we don't know about the other betrayal, but our first betrayal, we get half saying, "Your mom was never here. Your mom is not alive." James, what did you think when we get this reveal?
Yo, I literally had to like pause it. I paused my video stream and stood up and I was like, I can't. Like I can't do this anymore. My little heart was beating. Like this was a revelation of all revelations for me. Because we finally started to really get a sense of who Hath was in Alida's life. And going back to the whole Elida and Ame situation, I think there was a couple episodes ago, Hath kind of gave her the okay to like go experience life. Like if you see something in Ame, then go after that. So we really started to see Hath as this, or I did at least, as this kind of like paternal figure in Alida's life. And it I feel like the last episode it really hit home to me that he was kind of stepping in as her parent in a sense. And then to see this happen, the next episode was complete 180. So your boy was like, "What is going on?"
Yeah, it was an intense scene. I remember when we shot it. Um, we did the master, and everybody was just in it. Everybody was very in it. We had done like some meditations, like they had a setup for the shot, and I remember looking and seeing Colin just like meditating over in the sand. So I started meditating over in the sand, and then we just had this great energy all around us, and everybody was definitely in it. And we did the master, and I remember Jim coming from behind the screen afterwards. She takes her headphones off, and she's like, "You guys." Well, I always knew it was good whenever she whispered at us, "You guys, that was better than I thought of it in my head." She was like, "Thank you so much." And I was like,
Aw.
we're all already crying, so we start crying some more, and then we go back and do it again just for safety. But it was such a great feeling. That scene was it was like the way that Colin played it, because yes, it's super betrayal, like it's the ultimate, but also at the same time, you could feel his heart sad having to tell me that he betrayed me and what he did. And then you
Mm-hmm.
also felt how he was like, but this is the reason why, and my reason why still even thinks of you. And I'm like, no, bro. And I love how May comes in, she's like, no, you don't get to do that. So it really showed, his dynamic, me and his dynamic, and also how the trio or May has my back.
Mm-hmm. I love that you said that line. Yeah, I wrote that one down. It's like, you don't get to play that card. I was like, yeah, thank you. Glad someone said it.
Yeah.
And then, he wants her to claim her birthright, essentially, which is like, no, he just needs to use her to get it. So, what was, then how was it for you? So, the show's generally more on the lighthearted side, and then we get into these heavier moments, especially this episode. You had to cry, you had to be angry, and then you also get your line with Hath of, you mean nothing to me, and how your mother was right, and it's ironic because she said never to trust anyone. How was that journey for you as an actor to go through that on the day, and then just any other thoughts on this episode in particular?
Well, this episode, this whole block, we block shot 5 and 6, was very, emotional, and there's a lot of turmoil and things like that that's going on with Elida. And honestly, I had to make sure I got out of character fully when I wasn't on set, so I didn't carry around that sadness and that trauma, at home, because it's very deep, it's very dark, and you have to go to a very real place for it to resonate. So I used like music and things like that, and substitutions for some. But honestly, just what I was given on the day really helped with emoting all of the emotions. As long as I'm present, and the actors that are with me, I have an amazing group of people around me that are so supportive, and they're so giving with their acting. So they're giving me everything I need to actually genuinely react. And it wasn't difficult to cry, because once you're in there and my thoughts become Alida's, I don't have to think about crying. I don't have to try and make myself cry. That's why my tears, if you see it, like I don't have to squeeze them out. Like they're just dropping because they're just really there. And I'm just very grateful that I didn't find that hard because of, the work I did, and plus having such an amazing group of people around me to support me in the scene.
We have sorry if I say it wrong. Elijah Turbo Russ says, "I cried so hard."
Me too. I cried watching it again. I was like, damn.
Aww.
And then we go from this like heavy emotional tense scene. It's like, okay, well, we're gonna go in. I do like that Elida tells her friends, I want to keep you guys safe. You stay out here. But then she goes in the temple with the loyalists. I was like, well, she doesn't really trust them, but I guess she thinks they're not necessarily going to hurt her. They just need to use her.
Yeah, they're not, like, I don't think that Elida ever seen Dengar or Krog as threats. Like,
yeah, true. Let's be real.
I can take it out. Okay.
Actually, speaking of Dengar, oh my goodness. So we first, this episode was really gruesome, I think. First, when we have our rabbit critter, the eyeball pop. Oh my goodness, it's
that
one
was
of those
so fun watching it play back compared to when we shot it, because we shot it and nothing was there. So they're like, it's gonna be, they drew a circle and say around here. And we're all just like, it was really cool to see it. Actually, the eyeball pop out, I was like, whoa, that was nice. That was
okay. Nice. Right? It's one of those, it's so gross, but you're like, wow, that was really good. Like, you made a good gruesome because it makes you ugh.
And it made you actually understand or have a genuine fear for the vines, like of how tight they squeeze you and let you know their actual threat. Even like their vines, can't they just get out of them? Like I said for Indiana Jones, like I don't understand how you couldn't escape that, but that. So we wanted to make sure, Jen, and then wanted to make sure that it looked like it was an actual threat. And I think that bunny showed you, like, yeah, if it could do that to a bunny,
poor bunny.
That reminds me, James, what do you think of that? I do like the Earth references of when Elida and Issac are talking, and then she says, well, why didn't Indy just escape the carbonite?
So funny. Like, I love these like subtle Earth references we've been giving in the series thus far. There is another one a couple episodes back, if not the last episode, the whole like airport security thing. Those little things like that are so relatable to the show. There's another scenario, I think it was 2 episodes ago, the infamous Mick Gay bar thing, where Alme couldn't say MacGyver. Like, I think that those like apparently there's a shirt going around too that says Mick Gay bar. So
I'm so happy about it.
So definitely be on the lookout for that. But yeah, I love these little references like that because it really does humanize the show, and like being displayed so many different creatures and planets, and it's nice to have a little bit of home every now and again where you're like, okay, Indiana Jones, I get that reference. So you gotta love it.
For sure.
Do you ever have to hold back, speaking of funny parts, do you ever have to hold back your laughter on set though, Adrian?
Yeah, sometimes it's just the weirdest thing. Sometimes we just get the giggles. It's like it's like the flu or something. Like it just comes out of nowhere. And like you start laughing, you're like, I can't stop. Oh my God, stop. Don't do that. I can't stop laughing. So then you start laughing and someone else is laughing because you're laughing. And then it's like, all right, everybody just like, let's laugh for a minute. Let's get it out. But I remember there was a scene, I think the scene actually got cut for time. But when in the previous episode, when Irid, she gets smushed between the doors, bless her heart. There's a scene where before I start talking to Issac, Hath is in the room patching him up, and he was like, yeah, you never know though. And I was like, those doors smashed her pretty hard. I don't think she's alive. It was pretty hard between Hath and I. We like literally we knew the line was coming up, and he'd be like, I'd be like, don't. It took us like a good 3-4 times to get it, which is like normally we take 1 or 2, but this one took 3-4 because I just could not stop laughing thinking about how the doors really did. Like, there's no way.
Is there a particular actor that you work with, Adrian, that like like you may break the scene because they will make you laugh? Is there anyone on the cast in particular like that for you?
I'm trying to think. Maybe.
Or is like
But when I'm
or
in the scenes with Amay, it's like Alex when she's outside of Amay. But like if she's just like she's being Alex, and then we go into the scene and she says something that's Alexy, and then I'm like, oh god, hold on, start over, wait, you can't do that. Yeah, she does it, and then Tim, is always hilarious. Sometimes just like what his character does, I just have to like, okay, don't laugh.
We left off at our speaking of Dengar. Yes. Okay, so this felt I'm like a little bit of like, this felt like we were trying to get rid of a character, because I was like, why does he need to go in there to test it and everything? I was like, okay, because Alida's the smart one, that she's like, well, royal blood, y'all, come on, duh. And it just felt like such a sad death for him to have. Like, I would have rathered it be like a booby trap that he tripped, rather than like, I'm gonna choose to go in this thing that I probably shouldn't do anyways.
But in his defense, that's literally why he came. And
yeah,
kind of like the same thing of, back in the day, they didn't let the royalty taste their own food first.
Yeah.
So he was it's that type of dynamic. And I know it really does, because I remember on the day he was like, why would I do this? I was like, I don't want to go in there. And I was like, I know, but you gotta get on in there. Go on and die.
He did become like the sacrificial lamb of the episode, though, like Kari said. And then moreover, like the way that he died was straight out of like Mortal Kombat. It was like a Mortal Kombat fatality.
He really did kill it. But I don't mean
that.
No. He really did. He sold it with the shaking and the blood. It was just great.
Yeah.
Now, that's a tiny. Well, I mean that one's that one's a big moment of special effects. For you with makeup, how long does it take on the daily to get into it? Because I mean, you have your ears, hair, but you don't seem to have too much like extra stuff the way Ame has, different colored skin and everything. So how long is the makeup process for you?
Oh, my hair and makeup takes an hour and a half. So hair, makeup, prosthetics is all an hour and a half.
Nice.
But that's, because we have our makeup artists that work with us every day. And, it first started off at 2 hours, and then it would get down to like an hour and a half. And then after that, I could get into wardrobe. But, Manoush would just like think she knew what she needed to do. She knew about the ears, where, she just is amazing and great. So she would just work with it, and then the time started, going down until we got to about an hour and a half every morning.
Well, that's not too bad. I was like, that's a night going out doing hair and makeup.
I know, it would be great. Like after she puts my ears on, I remember one day I was so tired, and I was like, Manoush, I really, because my head kept doing this. She's like, lay back. I was like, okay, and then I fell asleep. I woke up, beautiful. I was like, you're so amazing.
How do you like the wardrobe? It looks very cool on our end. How does it feel to be in those kind of clothing on the daily?
It feels great. My pants are stretchy, but they don't look stretchy. My boots are comfortable, and like I remember I had 2 pairs of boots. One of them was a little tight at one point, and they had them stretched out, and they felt much better. Like nothing. If I ever had any problems or anything, they made sure everything was fixed and felt good to me. But they also made my clothes very practical and able to do stunts in. So we would have fittings, and I was like, and I'd be like, can you pass me my sticks? And we would do the stick fight. And they'd be like, all right, how's that feel with the stick fight? And I'd be like, great. So then all right, that's the one we choose. So it was really nice that they, incorporated that, knowing that I was doing so many stunts.
I was just gonna ask, how many of the stunts did you do, like percentage wise?
I probably did 98% of my stunts.
Wow.
Impressive.
Know, right? That's very, very impressive. Was there a particular reason that you wanted to, like, I'm sure they have like the budget to have stunt doubles. Was there any particular reason why you wanted to like tackle that particular part of the role?
Why not?
Yeah.
You know, it's not. I had never done an action role before. I have an athletic background, and I have the want to do it. So I was like, if I want to do it and things like that, then and we can use, straight on angles, and we don't have to cheat shots as much. Yeah, I would love to do that for an experience that I want to have, and also for the best of the show and things like that. And I had a great stunt team and coordinators that really worked with me, and they were so patient and taught me things and made sure I felt comfortable and that it looked well as well. So yeah, I was like, why not? I want to experience this, so I'm gonna try it. And I just
Was
tried
there
it.
any particular, so we interviewed Tim a couple episodes ago, and he told us like one of his more jarring stunts was hanging down from a wire. It was a scene where you guys are hanging down from the spaceship. Was there any particular stunt, without revealing too much, that you were kind of like, oh, I don't know about this?
Yeah. The first one I ever did.
Oh yeah.
When you guys see me fall into the sand pit and have this space junk, that was like my first day of shooting, and it was like 12 feet up, and they had me on this platform. So that really cool picture where you guys see me and I'm looking like this, and they've used it quite often. I have like a brick in the background. They use it often in a lot of the press. That's me breathing and thinking about how I gotta jump off this 15 or this 12-foot thing. And everyone's like, just a picture, and I'm like, I'm just trying to get it together. But yeah, that one, because when you jump, yes, I'm landing in sand, but I need to do a hero landing, which your neck can get whiplash, and it was my first time, but I was like, all right, let's do it. And we did it, and it came out cool. So
Did you get any injuries over the filming? Since you did 98% of your stunts?
I got a little whiplash on that stunt.
Okay.
I'm gonna lie.
Ow.
And then also in episode 4, when I had to jump over, I run, do my fight sequence, run, jump over, and then I find the grumpy traveler, and I try to get the briefcase from him.
Yeah.
Actually clipped the chair one time because I had done all that other stuff, my legs were tired. But I clipped the chair, and that kind of hurt like my butt because I bounced onto the floor.
Oh.
But everybody freaked out, but I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. My butt bone hurt for like 2 weeks.
Oh no.
That's a hard one to heal too. It's not like you can just wrap it up. I was gonna say, speaking of something hurting, we get Lazaro showing up with his soldiers, and then he gets the stairs ad as well. It's like, great, add more injury to injury.
He was gonna shoot him, so I had to give it to him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Of course, this is that moment where maybe you should explain things to everybody and have everybody on the same page, because of course she didn't know how to use it because nobody told her.
She, like, literally the when you go back and you have the flashback and you see child Elida with her mother and she shows her the hologram, that's all she knows about the stairs at. So her mother didn't go into detail of how to use it. It's just it's a powerful heart of a dying star and mind power, mind control. So I'm of royal blood. It's in my royal blood fingers. I don't know. Thought it would work. Didn't have a conduit to put it in to harness the power. So yeah, she didn't know, but at the same time, if it didn't work for me, I didn't think it would work for him. And I didn't know that the part that he needed had. He didn't tell me that. He hid that part. And then he was trying to shoot a May. So I'm like, hold up, wait, here, take give me her. You can't use it anyway. We win. And
right. Well, that also I would say it's along the lines of Isaac's logic, which we get the reveal that he did betray them, which I totally called that last week. But, shout out to Tim and director of last week's episode, our previous guest as well. It was pardon?
Janishka?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No,
thank you. Yes.
It was 4. Our director for this episode was Natalie and Cindy.
Nice. Oh, 2. Nice. But yeah, with Danishka, it was good job on the directing and the actor's part, because I go, so something's wrong. He's not saying it, but something's wrong. And
You totally called that last week, Kari. Hands down. When I saw that scene manifest itself, I was like, "Yep," because I didn't even think about that moment between Lazaro and Issac as being anything but just like a throwaway scene. But last week, Kari, you nailed it. You predicted that there was a little song going on between the two. And
I
sure
think it was
enough,
worse. Oh, it was even worse though, because it was, oh, you need to rough me up to sell it. I'm like, oh, Issac.
right?
So, oh well, we get his betrayal. Also, we get with the fight, the cave in, we get, we're going to go through this quick so we can get our other segments and some other questions. One, we get poor Krog dies, which I was like, oh, come on. That was like, poor guy. Right? He was trying.
That would have been
and then
a step up.
Right, yeah. And then we get Hath, which, we're kind of still probably angry at him at this point. But with the cave in, you're just like, oh, like, that's just a sucky way to go. You're just like, oh, man.
That scene, I really feel like for the character, what he says to me on his last breath on his deathbed, really, I know his betrayal is just heart-wrenching, terrible, but it really showed where his heart really was and how he, in his thought process. And I just really, really loved Hath's death scene. Like, Colin genuinely made me cry while filming this. I speak of it often in interviews, but he did his coverage, and when I'm present with you in a scene, I don't care if it's my coverage or your coverage. If I'm present and it makes me cry, I'm not gonna hold my tears back because it's not my coverage. Like, I would never. So I'm giving him everything, and they say, okay, we got it. Let's flip around. Excuse me. And he says, hey. And I come close. He said, come here. Because he's under the rubble. He said, come here. I'm like, huh. And he tells me, you are the closest thing I ever had to a daughter. And I genuinely am so sorry for what I've done to you. I love you, Elida. I really do. And you make me so proud. And then I'm just like, bawling, crying. And they're like, are you ready? Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, you're going to make me cry. I'm like,
literally, girl.
It's the most amazing thing. I was like, Colin, oh my goodness. Wow. It's great.
Well, everybody seems to be quite the giver of how, because that's how you get a great scene, is both, or anybody, how many involved, is like, if you are able to give that to the person, it makes it so much easier to give it back. Yeah. But it's quite the scene. But and I'm glad he gets a redemption though, in a way, because even though he did the betrayal, this redeemed him.
Yeah, and he saved my life at the same time.
That too, yes. And telling the friends, take her away.
Yeah.
Woo. Right? It's like, take her. I'm like, man.
How much of that was improv?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there were some things like when I'm like, no, don't say that. I remember that being improv. But I'm trying to remember if "Take Her Away" was improv. Maybe that one was a written line.
But it makes sense though. It's like, you're clearly not going to go on your own, and then your friends, it's like, no, we need to save you. But get out of there and tell Issac we are done for good. So Elida has had quite the rough day, to say the least. James, any other thoughts on this episode before we get into some additional kind of questions and then our special segment and predictions?
No, not really. I was just so happy with this episode. Adrian, you did a great job. We were talking before we went on air. Just you were really able to flex your like actor muscle in this episode. We really got a good range from you. So I'm so happy that you agreed to do this interview, but more importantly for this episode, because I feel like this was really a great episode for your characters to shine, and like we really got a sense of who you were as an actress.
Thank you. Really means a lot. Thank you.
And then I was gonna ask too. I feel this is something that's probably talked a lot about, that you've probably talked about a lot, and the show, because the show is being pushed as female lead, woman of color, and queer on a action sci-fi show. So how does it feel to be like representative of all of that? Like, is there any sort of pressure, or do you, like, how do you feel of all of those things that you get to represent?
I think that it's only pressure if you feel like it only will feel like pressure if it feels negative, and it doesn't feel negative at
Mm.
all. So I don't feel pressure. I'm grateful. I'm very humbled to be a part of this and a part of this movement for the inclusion of people of color, for the inclusion of queer roles, and telling all kinds of stories. Because we've had so many of the same stories, and for some reason we're like, yeah, that works. It's fine. We love it, but it's no different. We already like it's predictable, and you know what's gonna happen. But I think that representation is so important. Representation matters, whether it's people of color, whether it's people who are LGBTQ plus. All of these stories help someone look at themselves and see themselves in a character. It helps them grow as a person. It helps them understand different perspectives of different people. So representation is so important in so many ways. So I'm just so humbled and so honored to be able to be a part of that and to help do that. When I get messages about how people are grown women now, and they said, you're portraying the characters I wish I had as a young Black gay girl when I was little, and I'm just so amazed and happy that we have characters like you now. That just makes my heart full, because that's why I do this.
Why do you think it's science fiction that seems to be able to achieve this kind of representation?
I think that honestly, I think this kind of representation isn't quite
Not exclusive to sci-fi, but it does seem that science fiction is
I
able
feel
to push more.
well, because I think the doors close more. I feel like in other
Mm.
genres, to have a Black female lead, like in a comedy or a drama, it's not a thing. But this is so rare in sci-fi. It's not a lot of like in literally the kind of the one show. Was it Far Escape? Was that was says a
Right.
Black female lead, right? Or is it
I believe so.
Firefly?
Yeah.
Firefly,
Firefly has Firefly has.
because
Firefly.
Zoe, because it's the
Yes.
character of Zoe. Yeah.
So it's so uncommon. They're all people always say, oh, it reminds me of Firefly because I'm a Black female lead and there's a Black female lead, and that's the only other
Yep.
one they can think of. So I think that
Literally.
in sci-fi, literally the doors were so closed, and we're like pushing them open, holding them open for the next people to trailblaze and come through. So I feel like honestly, sci-fi is not very diverse at the moment. I mean, they're diverse in having a lot of aliens and having a lot of different type of alien races, but when it comes to people being Black and being of a major role or a lead role, I think that's relatively new, and it's a reason why we have to push even harder.
Nice. And then you've also worked with quite a few female directors, the showrunner and writers. Has that experience been any different than previous shows and films you've worked on?
Well, it's always a girl power thing. It's always when you meet someone like, so it's always gonna be different when you meet someone who has something in common with you, right? So working with all female directors is just freaking awesome, and there's a level of comfortability that I have as an actor with a female director that I might not have with a male director without working on it. That it just comes naturally because they're a female.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the best part was, working with them. They're creative geniuses. They're so amazing, and they're so creatively collaborative. So I felt like there was a lot less ego than when I have previously worked with some male directors. There was a lot less ego and a lot more like, well, I have this, and what do you have? Oh, cool. Well, let's mix them up and together. Oh, look at that. Looks great. Let's do it. So I felt like that was very present with this female director, and I really am so happy that this is so rare, and I got to be a part of it. I just feel like we joined hands and walked. It was like, yeah, I felt like we were in the Million Woman March. We're doing this, so it felt great.
Nice. Well, awesome. I love your answers. They're so great to hear your insight on it and everything. James, we're running low on time, but we got to cover our special segment
Yeah.
of
It is going to be Winnie Who? Wait, what? So we'll do it quickly because I know we're short on time today. Speaking of actors of color, even behind the prosthetics, we have actors of color representing us. So this week we're gonna do a quick spotlight on Mr. Vash Singh. You can find him on Instagram and Twitter at Vash_Singh, SINGH, on Instagram and Twitter. His website as well, vashsingh.com. Little known fact for him, he is born on December 25th, 1993, Cape Town actor as well. He has done quite a bit. One of his biggest roles was actually as a director. He did Sparks to the Grindstone in 2019, Boss Cafe in 2019. Another one that we know about, actually, the Banana Split movie in 2019, which was directed by our last guest, Miss Danishka Esterhazy. Hey, girl, we see you out there if you're watching. And then he also had a lead role in a movie called You Are My Pack. And the last one I found most interesting, he was in the 2008 reboot of Tomb Raider. Little known fact about him there. So that's going to be our spotlight this week. It's going to be Mr. Vash Singh. He plays the role of Krog. He died in this episode. We still got love for him, so we want to give him a quick little highlight. What's up, buddy? We see you out there.
Yes. All right. Give me one prediction, James.
Next episode, we are going to really get a sense of who Elida is as a new woman, because she's been betrayed up, right, down, left, right, center. So I feel like I don't know if she's gonna create a new trio, if she's gonna accept Isaac's apology, but I think that she's gonna grow as a character, and she may create like a new nuclear family moving forward. So I don't know. That's what I'm thinking is gonna happen in the next few episodes.
All right, piggybacking off that, I think it'll be essentially girls trip moment right now, because that's where you go when you've had a bad time. You go with your girls and hang out and recover. So I feel her and Ame will get some bonding time. I think it'd be nice as just friends, but maybe it'll progress a little bit more as well, because we all want that kiss maybe later, but we don't want to rush it.
What's that?
I predicted kiss.
Oh, right. I like it. Okay, nice. Well, Adriyan, thank you so much for talking with us, and thank you everybody who watched and commented and everything. It was so great to talk with you. Where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under my name, Adriyan Rae. That's ADRIYANRAE.
Yay! And James, where can people find you?
You can follow your boy on Instagram at Terrell James Maple, on Twitter at James Maple Actor. I also do after show for Reno 911 for Vagrant Queen, obviously, and do a lot of articles for AfterBuzz TV and Black Hollywood Live. So look out for your boy there.
Yay! And my name is Kari Lane. You can find me online at Kari D Lane. That's KARIDLANE. We have the finale for Westworld this evening, and if you're a fan of anime, we're starting our coverage of Demon Slayer. So check that out. Again, thank you so much for watching, everybody. And again, thank you, Adriyan. It was a pleasure.
Woo! Thank you for having me.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.